Dun, 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 dun.
Though I would imagine broad recognition of this movie is somewhat limited presently. I'm not trying to speak ill of it, by the way, going in, because I haven't inquired on it yet. I'm just saying, based on my assumption of the journey I took in trying to not only find the trailer for this, and at present it's sitting at 23 views as I'm looking at it on April 26th of this year, but in trying to dig up information, though an IMDb page exists, particular information with the project is a bit more challenging to dig up unless you really go and look for it, which I've found something that I will present to you in the case that you're approaching the Lost Coast in much of the same way that I am, in unfamiliarity. But promise, perhaps, because I look at the genre that this film is set in and the type of story it's depicting, and in general it is a smaller project, at least from my understanding, so it fits into the smaller film indie territory, and many of you know I like to explore that environment alongside commercial fare, in particular because I'm charmed by the lack of limitation in some regards. Some limitations, yes, perhaps in maybe budget constraints and studio marketability or notoriety, or maybe there's a lack of studio presence, to be fair, as well, and it might be just more so up to the individual filmmaker, in particular, of marketing the project and getting reach out of it. But I oftentimes find a charming capacity, again, like I said, with the absence of limitation. Whereas in other commercial fare you might see studio constraints, runtime constraints, where in the indie market, oftentimes these films will depict a filmmaker's, to the best extent that they can, unanimous vision. And a story like The Lost Coast features with as much depth as it has, I'm very much willing to entertain it. And maybe you will be too. It's going to it thinking of a family character study of sorts. And that's sort of, again, like I said, if you want more specified version, I'll give you the House of Film synopsis according to their the main video, in fact, for the trailer. This is what they offer in a more extensive background. Sometimes you find your way. Two brothers find themselves on an unplanned road trip along the California coast, igniting the chemistry created when two people with completely different ethics, views, and attitudes are thrown together by fate to fulfill a mission. Like the driver and the piano player in The Green Book, or Robert De Niro and Charles Grodin in Midnight Run, their clashes, banters, and idiosyncrasies will make us laugh and cry as the story unfolds and culminates in catharsis. The Lost Coast is abundant in bittersweet moments and odd situations as the two brothers get to know each other for better or worse, and even more profoundly, like every great road movie, their journey is truly one of self-discovery. See, I admire the personal connection that I have. I mean, whereas, you know, in my family, we don't necessarily have this connection on part of my sibling and I. You know, I got a brother, so I directly relate to this in part, though we differ dramatically in age. We maybe haven't hit this point in our lives where the chemistry depicted in this movie between these two characters that is embodied, and I like the attributions here on part of The Green Book. I've seen that movie a number of years ago. I thought it was quite good for the most part. Maybe not entirely perfect, but I felt that, you know, immediately Mahershala Ali was a big draw for me, in the same way Viggo Mortensen. They're both very capable actors, and the dynamics to their relationship really impressed me. So to see a project offer that in comparison, as well as with the Midnight Run, I've not personally seen that movie, but if this movie can reach a semblance of that strength and the demonstration of the relationship, and also the depth of what this film might touch on, in particular with the character paths, right? They specify different ethics, views, and attitudes. So there's this meshing taking place that might be, in some elements, awkward. I mean, I don't know. Again, I'm just going on a first presumption here based on what I just read in the pitch. But I'm curious to see the depth this movie will tackle in regards to different character dynamics and how the brothers' journeys in life intersect and converge. Again, I find that admirable, quite frankly. It's depth in stories like this is what's so charming to me. And when it comes to character studies, I do keep an open book on those specifically, even not just in the indie market, but also in commercial fare. But I oftentimes see an achievement level within the indie market on realization of story that some commercialized films might not share. Maybe streaming series, that wouldn't be fair to say, because there's a little more depth you can utilize there in terms of runtime duration to explore said stories, and it's in the TV format-esque, or TV, yeah, it's better, because streaming is slightly different, but, well, of course. But it's the depth of story that I admire, and the promise of what The Lost Coast could be in realization brings in some interest from me. And maybe it'll be the same for you. Like I said, I don't know if this film's getting the broadest of attention. Currently at 23 views on April 25th. It's not the most well recognized, and again, the IMDb page has casting attributions, but it's for more or less scarce, at least on plot elements. Maybe they just haven't updated it yet. Maybe, you know, that'll be in the future at some point. maybe then more attention will be fixated on the movie. If I can help amplify it in any way, if it deserves any more recognition than it probably already has, and we're about to engage it and see for sure, I'm game. I like being able to help out when I can, perhaps for a project that is of competence. And in the indie space, again, maybe there isn't necessarily, admittedly, I'm not trying to speak in an unkind manner on this, there isn't the extension of resources that can be provided in other, like, major commercial releases by comparison, right? Sometimes it takes more of an exercise to get notoriety out there. And The Lost Coast, at least on pitch, I would believe it deserves such. Let's inquire on it at a deeper level, with the first, I believe, only trailer that exists presently.
We need to make decisions. What are we going to do with Katie's body?
Yeah, like I said, indie flair in the cinematography. Bit aged.
The system that they did with my father. They divided his ashes in half, and then the half.
Very endearing, though, in the cinematography.
So eighths. So they gave one to my sister.
There's a sentimental quality to the color tones.
It's all mine now.
Very engaging.
No, thank you. I'm fine.
All right, so let's talk about the boys. Any savings, life insurance?
I think that she had a policy through her work, but I'm not sure. I can't remember.
What about college?
They're 5.
No one's been here for months. Nobody's coming. A lot of these places nobody lives in.
Here's what I found. Katie wanted to divorce you. She says you hit her.
This whole experience is about letting go.
You're not stable, Aaron. You have stable people around you.
I'm stable because I love Katie. And I'm stable because I love my kids. That's it.
It's enduring on pitch, and like I said with the convergence story between these two brothers, though the trailer might not dive into everything, at least that the series, or that the synopsis touches on, again, like I said, with specific recognition, different ethics, views, and attitudes, and that could have broadened up. I mean, speaking in terms of one mention in here in particular of difficulties within the relationship between at least one of the brothers and I'm assuming his wife or girlfriend. I don't remember what they said if they did for clarification, but that perhaps there was some domestic abusive behavior that took place. Or maybe that's a bit severe to say. Well, still, it's like, it's abusive behavior to hit somebody like that. And that's what you would find in the real world. So perhaps for someone, that could be really interesting. This could dive extensively into the psychology. Like I said, I find the indie market quite charming. And maybe, again, this is just my suspicion and presumption of where the project could go. Maybe you watch the movie and you're like, it doesn't necessarily hit that deep. But I sense it does. I mean, again, if you're going to stress so many different angles, at least on the pitch of the project, it's a tease for me to the very least believe it. And on realization of a trailer, what they're probing on, let me start at the beginning in terms of cataloging everything I admire. Like I said, we'll come back to that so I can get my thoughts straight on this. Cinematography-wise, I love the color palette. Again, like I said, it has this like paradise type feel on part, but it feels at the same time as that, because I'm looking at like the orange and the blue color tones, like this one beach shot I thought was really impressive. There's a, and I wouldn't say this is like a Wes Anderson movie, but I remember back to the deliberancy of the color palette featured, let's say, for example, in Moonrise Kingdom. And I see that same methodical presentation in Tool here, though not as, like I said, isolated in vision as Moonrise Kingdom. And that is a very different movie by comparison to this. But even that's kind of, like I said, an indie artsy flair. So does this. I find that connection point, again, like I said, on the visualization of the scene with reference to the lighting and the cinematography and the way that it's shot. I find it quite exquisite. And on visualization, it's rather endearing. And the dynamics to the relationship, I think, are exercised on behalf of both of the lead actors here competently. I like the presentation there. And the road trip setting, I mean, that's a wonderful environment. I mean, you got nothing better to do. You got how many hours to take a journey to wherever, and with how many stops along the way. Perfect time to break the ice on certain matters, I guess, in your history or your present life. Plenty of time for discussion. the depth to what the story could achieve, though, like I said, the reference with the relationship dynamics between one of the brothers and, again, his partner. And again, I'm just going with that term because, again, of a lack of specific attribution of what the circumstances are in the movie with the characters. I find that interesting. That, again, it's touching on, when you speak of ethics, like characters, in reference to at least the one moment, like I hit her or whatever, that you hit her, I forget what they said. Diving into the psychology of the character, perhaps in backstory and history, to investigate what would lead someone there. I mean, again, I don't know if the film's going to adventure to that depth, but you bring it up in the trailer, and I'm like, I wonder. A story with that complexity, or that level of it, I admire, even at least on promise. And in other facets, you're seeing a man that is very centered around family dynamics, his kids, being, it seems, a upstanding father, at least in some respects, or at least humoring that image. I really like the promise of this movie. Again, character studies, though perhaps I would imagine, again, film tastes among audience members tend to be a little more subjective, right? We all have our go-to genres and films of particular focuses. I don't mind a good realization on a character's journey, especially since I tend to resonate a lot with models presented in cinema. Maybe not always, It can differ quite a bit. I mean, you might not necessarily... I don't like to use this phrasing, but you oftentimes hear these days, like, oh, you can see yourself on screen or whatever. I think it's a little overused, and it's become a bit cliche. But, I like that journey of character studies that perhaps you see facets of your life or others that mirrored in very authentic ways that provide realization and reflection to you, if you're looking for that. And I look at The Lost Coast and I see, like other character studies with such teased depth, I see it as a film with much potential. And on art and craft, again, very much an indie flair movie to me. It just appears that way. So I'm curious to engage a bit. Very much so. And I hope that others are too. Again, like I said, I'm very well aware that the indie market, at some level, benefits from added attention. Especially when perhaps there isn't necessarily the backing to... maybe this isn't fair to say. I like to give hands up where possible, and where I feel it's deserved to certain projects. And again, I engage everything on a first impression. It's sort of the baseline I operate from, at least in nature, with my content on this. So I look at The Lost Coast, and I see a film that, again, is not necessarily getting the most recognition as of yet. The trailer is uploaded yesterday as I'm making this video. So at 23 views, I see a film that perhaps promises much and deserves recognition. Maybe I'm helping providing you with a path to a movie that you'll admire upon realization. I mean, they don't necessarily say when the movie's out. It's a shorter movie at 89 minutes. I forgot to mention that. And it does have some significant casting attributions on part of Peter Lucas, Sharon Blynn, and Patrick McAuliffe. They're well-known actors in other respects to projects they've been in. I don't remember how dominant the roles to those particular works were, but there's significant attributions to every one of the casting credits here for the most part, at least what the YouTube page is presenting, that maybe some of these names are recognizable to you. And when you see, these films, or see this film for the first time, you'll be like, oh, I know that actor or that actress, maybe. I see a film of promise. And if I can in any way provide a path forward for this movie to earn more eyes, I'd love to be a helping hand in that. Because I see a project with potential, and one that I definitely find endearing enough to check out when it's available. And again, like I said, IMDb doesn't specify anything. If any information is updated in regards to release, whether it be on date or outlet, maybe it's going to be on streaming or something, I'll try and update the comment section down below to help you out if you're looking to engage with it. But I'd be very curious, again, to hear your thoughts as well if you wish to provide that perspective down below. I mean, it's a $500,000 budget, at least. That's what IMDb estimates on the project. So they spent some significant cash. But I see a movie with, again, a very charming indie flair. And I respect that. And the depth of the story, the probable depth of it, I'm enticed enough to check it out once I can, when that option is made available. And again, I will update as necessary when possible. If there's another trailer, I'll humor it again. The new trailer, in terms of, if I say humor it again, I mean in the context of the movie with The Lost Coast. I'm charmed by it. I see promise to this movie. Going forward, we'll see if it delivers, but I'm looking forward to the opportunity to engage with it. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.